am I? Where am I going? Is it somewhere that I want to go? And when I get there, is that where happy is? Or is it somewhere I already know? Sometimes I feel like I cry without a noise. Sometimes I feel like somebody chose my choice. I have to run away. I have to sit and stay. I want to live a life where I'm allowed to say that I'm proud of the way that I spent my days. I can feel something growing. It is small, but it's shifting the ground. When I was younger, I could hear it, but it's back. It's my sound. Sometimes I feel like I lost my only voice, but then I realize only I can choose my choice. I have to run away. I have to sit and stay. I want to live a life where I'm allowed to say that I'm proud of the way that I spend my days these days. All we ever really get are days to dream and days to lose. I just need to choose. I have to run away. I have to sit and stay. I want to live a life where I'm allowed to say that I'm proud of the way that I spent my days. All right, first hymn time, you guys. Okay, if you would please join me in hymn 163, For the Earth Forever Turning. For the earth forever turning, for the skies, for every sea, for our lives, for all we cherish, sing a joyful
Good morning. My name is Gail Stevenson, and I serve as a treasurer for the Board of Trustees of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spartanburg. And it's here in front of me, and I'm still getting it wrong, so.
We love you anyway!
Thank you. I love you too. I'm delighted to welcome you all here this morning, whether you are here at UUCS or virtually. This is a welcoming congregation where everyone is welcome just as we each are. If you are visiting with us this morning, we would love to meet you to share more about the life of the congregation. Visitor cards may be found in the pocket on the back of the chair in front of you. Please feel welcome to fill one out and place it in the offering plate during the service so that we can connect with you. Allow me to share a few announcements this morning. The Path to Membership class will meet this Sunday, October the 13th, starting at 12:30 p.m. in Wild Hall, that's downstairs. The Path to Membership class is a place to learn about the Unitarian Universalism and our congregation. Lunch will be served and childcare will be available. You are welcome whether you're signed up or not, so please do join us. Consciousness Team Book Study. Our social justice consciousness team is offering a fall book study on the story of inequality in America based on the book Unequal, A Story of America by Michael Eric Dyson and Mark Favreau. The authors provide hope that truthful storytelling provides the essential pathway to impact racism and inequality. Reverend Jean Batson Turner and Catherine Hope are leading the study each Sunday at 1 p.m. Come today, whether you have read or not, everyone is welcome. And the Upstate Pride March and Festival will be held on Saturday, November the 2nd. An interfaith service led by Devlin Hill, Faith Taylor, Noah Tobin, and Ann Gardner will start the day, followed by the march and day-long celebration. Our congregation will host a booth, and we need your help. Watch the happenings for how you can support Pride. Thank you all for being here and for making this a community of such love, warmth, and care. We're glad you're here today.
Good morning. Let me add my welcome to you. My name is Mel Fritchie, and I will be serving you as the worship associate this morning. I would just like to say how excited I am to be here as we welcome a new member to our music team, Max. You're awesome! Our chalice lighting, the thunder of hoofbeats. From a dream sequence in the coming-of-age novel, Bless Me, Ultima, by Rudolfo Anaya. Then the silence was shattered with the thunder of hoofbeats. Vaqueros surrounded the small house with shouts and gunshots, and when they entered the room, they were laughing and singing and drinking. These were the people of my father, the vaqueros of the llano. They were an exuberant, restless people, wandering the ocean of the plain. His forefathers were conquistadores, men as restless as the seas they sailed, and as free as the land they conquered. He is his father's blood.
If you will please join me in hymn number 160, Far Too Long by Fear Divided. This is a new hymn. I'm not familiar with it until I practiced it, so we're going to just do it together. All right. Far too long by fear divided, we have settled with the sword quarrels which should be decided by the reconciled. of hate remove, and earth's riches freely sharing, found the dynasty of love.
What brave people we are, singing a new hymn. We have 5 areas of ministry in this congregation, and one of them is care. We care for one another, we care for our community. We hold space for each other, knowing that we cannot know all that is in the hearts of everyone here, but knowing that we honor all of those feelings and all of the fullness and richness of one another's lives. We take this time now in a ritual of the rippling bowl, where we come forward and drop a stone or a shell in the water to hold that space for one another. Please come and bring your full selves with your joys, your sorrows, your hopes, and your dreams. This is a place of dreams. This is a place of welcome. This is a place of imperfection. This is a place of hope. The reason I keep returning to this place is because the people here who may not look like me or think like me or believe like me, all are simply trying to make the world a better place. And I come here as I try to make the world a better place to feel their love and support. And I feel this when we say the promise that we have written and made to one another, that we say each and every week together always trying. Please join me in saying our covenant together. With courage, we say, together we covenant to strive to become our better selves, to honor both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to respond to systems of violence and oppression with the power of a love beyond belief. We manifest the support of one another as we greet one another. We greet one another with hugs. We greet one another with nods. We greet one another respecting the meditation space of someone's closed eyes, head bowed, as we get through this portion of the service. But please sustain one another as you now choose. And I don't know if you know what a really, really hard job this is, Max.
Oh, I do.
Okay, but when Max starts playing, so as not to give them too hard a time on the first day, we're supposed to come back to our seats.
Please. Okay. Okay. Don't hit me, people, don't hit me.
Good job. As I tell my Max, do what I say, not what I do.
My mother used to say that too.
Right? It is time for us to receive our offertory the way we sustain this magical place. I would like to welcome my friend Amanda to come and talk to us about the United for All Fund. Please welcome Amanda Richardson, our reigning stewardship queen.
Good morning. So, for those of you that don't know, when it's not Sunday, or well, sometimes even when it's Sunday, I am the Vice President for Resource Development and Brand Experience for United Way of the Piedmont. It's a big job. And today I'm going to share a little bit about the United for All Fund. The support from this congregation means so much, especially as we face one of the greatest challenges our community has seen in years. Since Hurricane Helene hit, we've received 3,621 applications for help, an overwhelming number of families in desperate need of food, shelter, and other basic necessities. So far, we've been able to assist 593 of those households, about 16%. We provided nearly $77,000 in direct assistance, including helping 47 families secure temporary housing through Airbnb. To put this in perspective, when the pandemic hit in 2020, it took us 9 months to reach this same number that we've reached in just the past few weeks. The need is immense, and we are stretched thin, but the compassion and generosity of people like you are making all the difference. Your support today will go directly toward providing relief to families who are still waiting for assistance, including $13,000 in pending requests, which we're preparing to fund as soon as the documentation is finalized. Thank you for helping us ensure that no one in our community faces this crisis alone. Your generosity is truly making an impact, and we are deeply grateful. Thank you.
I have a voice, started out as a whisper, turned into a scream, made a beautiful noise, shoulder to shoulder marching in the street. When you're all alone, it's a quiet breeze, but when you band together, it's a choir of thunder and rain. Now we have a choice, 'cause I have a voice. I'm not living to die. Don't stand in a wasteland, look at me in the eye. Stop living the lie and stand up next to me. You gotta put one foot in front of the other, hand in hand holding on to each other. Go on and rejoice, 'cause you have a voice. It is loud, it is clear, and it's stronger than your fear. It's believing you belong, and it's calling out the wrong. From the silence of my sisters to the violence of my brother, we can rage against the river, feel the pain of another. I have a voice, I have a voice. Now let it speak for the ones who aren't yet really free. It's killing me. No one is saying what we need to hear. I will not let silence win. Now when I see all the pain our people are in, there's no other choice, 'cause I have a voice. It is loud, it is clear, and it's stronger than your fear. It's believing you belong, and it's calling out the wrong. From the mouths of our mothers to the lips of our daughters, we can dream like our brothers, speaking loud like our fathers. I I have a voice. I have a voice. I let it speak for the ones who aren't yet really free. It's killing me. No one is saying what we need to hear. I will not let silence win. Now when I see all the pain our people are in, there's no other choice, 'cause I have a voice. We can heal. Can you hear us? Can you hear us now? I have a voice. Started out as a whisper, turned into a scream, made a beautiful noise, shoulder to shoulder marching in the street. When you're all alone, it's a quiet breeze, but when you band together, it's a choir, thunder and rain. Now we have a choice, 'cause I have a voice.
I want to add my thanks to Amanda's for the support that we are offering as a congregation and that many of you are offering individually to the work of the United Way. As sometimes happens in this congregation, I experience the heroism of our members often as understated in the way they tell the story. So I want to just underscore some of what Amanda shared today, so you understand the role of the United Way and the recovery efforts that are going on. About a week and a half ago, I was called into a meeting with leaders from the 5 major foundations in our community and a few other folks. I was there as one member of the faith community. And the purpose was to talk about what was unfolding following the hurricane and how we could respond, and to coordinate those efforts to maximize the impact of our resources and all of our work to be of support to each other. There are endowments there of many, many tens of millions of dollars, folks with vast array of other tools and opportunities, other ways to help gathered in that room. The group that everyone turned to was the United Way. Because different from all of the other major funders in our community, the United Way commits a lot of its time and attention to grassroots efforts, what is happening on the ground. I dare say that week in, week out, year after year, this has got to be very frustrating for the United Way because it slows them down a lot. But when it came to organizing chainsaw crews and oxygen tank dispersals and getting medicine to people, to the right people, things that people needed, food, direct financial aid, housing, everyone turned to this team because they knew how to do it. And they had all the channels to start the work. And they have been going nonstop since before 11:30 a.m. 2 Fridays ago. Just going and going and going. When we share the plate this month on behalf of the United Way, we are offering them what we can to fuel that effort forward. And already that effort is not only immediate response. We've heard more than $77,000 of immediate aid, another $13,000 that is ready to be dispersed as soon as final approvals take place, and much, much more in kind. But the United Way is now convening all of those partners again to talk about what long-term recovery here will look like. And on average, in communities that have been hit by a disaster on the level that we have, that is about a 30-month time period, 2.5 years of rebuilding and of trying to take crisis and with the greatest care and compassion, leverage it to create greater equity in our community. That is the work that Amanda and her team are striving to lead us in, right? You know what hit us 2 weeks ago. You know what it's been like following it. You know how non-cooperative some of your fellow drivers have been going through intersections. Take that as a symbol, as a metaphor for what the next 2.5 years will include. But it also has involved gathering and convening and connecting to get things where they need to go to help each other. To help each other in the moment, but also try to shift history. To help each other for the long term. So I want to implore you to give as you can to support this effort. And I want to ask now, if you would, to send a message back to Amanda's team by giving them a standing ovation for all the work that they are doing. It's a team that's easy to brag on, and so are you, because when all of this hit, the United Way called and said, we need people to help with oxygen tank distribution. We need people to help with medicine dispersal, carefully done, correctly done. We need people to help with water and food distribution, on and on and on. And members of this congregation started showing up at emergency management centers and on call teams and receiving lists from the United Way and going down a list of 200 people to call them in order to resource them. Many people from this congregation. And when I asked if they would help, and they looked at me like I was out of my mind, their answer was not no, but it was, let me find somebody who can help me with this, because I can't do it alone. So building teams. This congregation has really shown up. So if you will indulge me for a second time, I'll ask you to give yourselves a standing ovation for all that you've done. And I'm not joking. Let's do it. Come on. A lot of heroes in this room. And we give thanks. Share silence with me. In Dostoevsky's novel, Crime and Punishment, a man plans a murder. And on the night before he would act, he has a dream. In this dream, he is a child again, and he is walking hand in hand with his father through the village of his birth in Russia. And they are on their way to a church that he did not attend regularly. There were not Unitarian Universalists in Russia then, but a church that he loved nonetheless. A place of comfort and tradition and groundedness, of connection for him. And as he and his father walked towards this sacred site, they passed a tavern, out of which spilled a group of loud, carousing men. And outside of this tavern, from which these men issued forth, there stood a cart and a horse. Not a horse of great strength, not a horse meant to pull that cart, but an old horse, a weakened horse, a horse that had not been treated well. And as the men came from the tavern, the owner of the horse said, "Everybody get in the cart, come with me, I'll give you a ride." And they looked at this horse and they said, "How can this horse even pull this cart, much less all of us in it?" And the men said, "No, come with me. We'll make her walk. We'll make her run. We'll make her gallop." So in his dream, this young man with his father turns to watch these men, heedless of the animal on whom they are to burden this task, climb rowdily into the cart and begin to urge the horse on. The horse cannot even make the wheels turn, can't make the cart budge. And in a fury, in a drunken rage, the owner of the horse begins to beat the horse, to scream at it, to urge it forward, and then to call his compatriots into that abusive behavior. And one leads to the other, leads to another, wailing away on this creature, totally unsuited for the task, because so uncared for by this same master. The abuse becomes so grave. This will be hard to hear. It is important. They begin to beat the horse across its face, across its eyes, to the point of death. And in his dream, this man contemplating murder, remembering his childhood, rushes forward and throws himself on the horse. Try to protect it, but too late. Dies. He wakes from this dream, feverish and shaken, and knows clearly that his consciousness is facing him once more before he acts with the crucial choice: what will he do? In his waking life, what will he choose? Determined in his course of action, he resolves that he must put this dream behind him. I shared with you last week images from myths and religions around the world that envision storms like the ones that we have experienced, as heavenly riders, divine beings stampeding across the sky. Their hoofbeats thunder, lightning, the pouring rain, the energy and sweat that pours from these ghostly riders. Across the world's traditions, we see these images, and whatever they may mean to each of us, in part they are a dream of our cultures, of our people. Thinking of the power of people on horseback, of people riding across the landscape, of people on the move, and envisioning the power of storms that can wreak so much havoc on our lives as an army moving across our world, altering the landscape and our lives in it. These images, whatever we make of them, they tell us a very deep truth about the lives of people in relationship with horses. Our word horse derives from the old Germanic word hros, which comes from the Proto-Germanic word ekros, which is related to the Latin word equus, which is connected with the Greek word hippos, which is related to words in ancient Iranian languages, Central Asian languages, even Sanskrit. Asva is a direct cousin to our own word, horse. This creature is so deeply connected to human life and culture, to the unfolding of human history, that we can chart the movements of people through the inheritance of language, tracing just this one word, horse, to see the interconnectedness of our cultures through time and space. Thousands of years ago, people experiencing shifts in climate change in the Central Eurasian plains mounted horseback and most of all developed a technology called chariots tied to horses and began to move to try to find pasture where their livestock could survive. And they moved in waves, coming south, coming east, coming west, into Italy, into Turkey, into Greece, into Western China, into Iran and Afghanistan, into India and the Ganges Plain, and moving even into the Rhineland and further west, into Western Europe, and even into the British Isles, carrying with them a culture as a nomadic people linked to this one animal. Some of them came storming, and they invoked gods that looked like them, storm gods that could ravage a landscape and take what they needed, a warrior caste of nobility. And they called themselves by a name that we still associate with that level of ferocity, a name that will stir fear in us. Aryans. A word with many meanings and many valences. But the shadow of that word stays with us as well. Some of them came not for war, but just to eat and find shelter in slower waves, a gradual migration of hundreds and thousands of years, altering landscape and culture as they and their beasts of burden moved in patterns of migration to just find home. These patterns echo through our history. When we look at the knights of medieval Europe, chevaliers mounted on horseback, we are looking at a memory of those earlier travelers, warriors mounted on steeds, moving across landscapes. Many people conjecture that the Arthurian legends of the Round Table is an attempt, perhaps a very weak and often failed attempt, to try to regulate the behavior of these marauding knights who were unethical and violent, taking whatever they wanted. We hear the stories of conquistadors coming to this continent and moving across North and South America. We see a story of that knighthood continued, of the return of the horse to these continents and the way it utterly changed the landscape and the people here. Just think of the stories we tell of pioneers, people risking their lives to move over the Great Plains west. That story of manifest destiny that our nation has been so enamored of. A story with such a complex and devastating legacy. So many of those people just trying to make a life, just trying to carve out a way of living in a harsh world. But those horses tied to those chariots that we called covered wagons moved over those thousands of miles to inhabit what became our country, which we take for granted today. Horses and human culture are deeply linked, profoundly linked. And the legacy of the marriage of our two beings is a legacy of conquest, of violence, of murder and genocide, and of hope, of struggling to find a place in the world, of seeking a home when home no longer exists. A complex and devastating history. I stood on the edge of this continent, looking out over pastures and low hills to mountains, and imagining beyond those mountains, those great plains opening up, great rivers that traverse those plains, and other mountains rising up and then falling away to the Pacific coast. I stood there thinking about this history, how it is my inheritance, our inheritance. So many choices, so many pressures, so much tied between humans and horses. So much has been shaped in that relationship. As I looked out over that landscape, leaning against a fence, I turned. And there was a horse standing next to me, grazing on pasture land, leaning over the fence to look at me. I don't know if you have ever looked at a horse, looked in the eyes of a horse. For all the power and majesty, the nobility of these creatures, for all that they have meant in our history and all the change that they have brought. The eyes of a horse are one of its most powerful attributes. There is something so deep and accountable when we gaze into these creatures' eyes. And looking out over the landscape of our continent and thinking of all that our history is and has wrought in our lives, the ways we have all been shaped in it, I turn to look into the eyes of this creature who has been our partner. And what I saw there was not malice, was not greed, was not vengeance or violence. It was a pool of steadiness and peace, and most frightening of all, my own reflection, dreaming myself in the eyes of that horse. Kara Dowling has asked this month that we reflect on what horses teach us. And Kara's question comes from her own experience of horses in her life. More than 10 years ago now, Kara learned of a program that she might be a candidate for, a program in this community called Halter, where candidates who were accepted into the program would be taught how to care for horses, how to ride, to learn responsibility, to learn skill, to learn relationship through their relationship with the horses placed in their charge. She had to wait a full year before her application was accepted. Anticipation building in the movie theme. And when she was accepted into that program, she went and she learned the simplest tasks. How to feed, how to care, how to brush, how to clean, how to cool, how to mount, how to ride. And Kara fell in love. For more than a decade, her life has been devoted not to one, but to many horses in her care. The skill that she has honed. Every Friday, she goes to stables with many horses in her charge, and she cares and rides for these great creatures, so deeply linked to her history and her destiny. Our religions and our myths carry these images of divine beings roaring through the heavens, gale force winds. But Kara, through the lessons that she has learned about respect and diligence, generosity, she has learned to ride the storms of her life through what these horses teach her. It's not my place to share all of Kara's story. You are welcome to ask her. She's a very good storyteller. And if you're not sure who Kara is, she's the one wearing the horse hat today. Suffice it to say that Kara is a daughter of two parents she deeply loves. And her family, which is a family of very deep love, knows many troubles. And Kara's responsibility, her growth as a person of character and commitment, the patience that she has learned, the focus, the way she shows up every day to ride for her family, it has made all the difference in these years. The quiet smile on her face shows that she knows what we're talking about. Before iPhones and automobiles, the iron horse of the railway, the rapid evolution of technology over the last 2 centuries. Before all of that, there was a technology that utterly transformed human life across every continent in successive waves. And the change often was a change of the erasure of cultures and the loss of life because of this image of the warrior on horseback, the charioteer stampeding over the battlefield, and the fear that that would strike in the hearts of others, the ideal of conquest, of might makes right, of taking what we want for ourselves and the rest be damned. I think of all of those people, generation after generation, so dependent on this creature, using it as technology, using it as a tool to meet their own ends. But what happened when they stopped to look in the eyes of this partner? What happened when they gazed into the depths of those dark pools, the eyes of the horse? Did they see themselves? Did they question who they were and what they were doing? There's a man who dreamed of a world of freedom. His name was Friedrich Nietzsche. He longed to break free of the constraints of his life, the tragedies and disappointments of his family, all the brokenness that he had experienced. And to do that, he chose for his ideal the Aryan, the noble, the warrior on horseback of his European heritage. And he longed in his life as a philosopher and a writer to embody this ideal of the man of freedom over all, über alles, a man who could conquer fate and the rest be damned. He's a man for whom we can have high regard even in disagreement with his ideas. He is a man who reshaped our world with his thoughts, changing how we think about our mastery over our lives and the responsibility that we have to create a future of ourselves. A man who has massively influenced our culture. But this ideal of nobility and conquest, this willingness to do violence to himself in the effort at self-mastery, brought him to the breaking point of mental collapse. And one day in the streets of Turin, after a year of feverish writing and massive production, writing masterpiece after masterpiece that we study and live by still today, Nietzsche turned a corner to find a horse and a cart and an owner beating the beast, beating the horse that wouldn't move, a creature uncared for. And in a break with his whole philosophy, a philosophy that had denigrated the weakness of compassion and mercy in favor of strength and might, Nietzsche threw himself around the neck of the horse, embracing this abused creature and crying for mercy. And his mind broke. He went into full mental collapse. Horses have been used by us for thousands of years. But the brilliant minds of a broken Nietzsche, of a Kara Dowling, and the deep reflective minds of the horses who gaze at us at the edge of a continent conquered by our forebears, call us to compassion.
If you will please join me in hymn number 159, This Is My Song. This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and wide. This is my home, the country where my heart is. There are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high.
We extinguish our chalice with the reading, "Horses Shaped the World," from the biologist Pablo Librado of the Institute of Evolutionary Biology. The world as we know it today has been shaped by horses. How many empires rose and fell because of a powerful cavalry? Think in agriculture, how important horses were as working animals. No other animal was a kingmaker as the horse was.
No other animal was a kingmaker as the horse was. It's such a beautiful image, such a mythic ideal, so seductive. But turn to face our reflection in the eyes of the horse. Are we trying to make kings?
We have spent time together in these holy moments. Give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again. We have spent time together in these holy moments. Give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again. Am I good? I was like, I don't know if there's a post load. I don't know.